Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chat. Today, it's nearly the end of May. It'll be June. We're all going on vacation soon. I'll be on vacation next week. Today is May 30th. Next week, I won't be here. It's going to be a complete takeover. I don't know what's going to happen. But Becky Garrow is going to take over. It's going to be wonderful. So make sure you show up for her session next week. She's going to be talking about client red flags and setting boundaries. I think I got that right. That's completely off the top of my head. But today we're talking about business planning. This is a core topic. Core topics are sessions that we do every year. So if you don't like what I said this year, or you want to hear a different version of it, I said more or less the same thing last year on June 1st, 2023. And I'll do it again, hypothetically, if we're still around, in either the very end of May or the beginning of June next year. We have a topic every month that's a core topic. So we talk about fees, we talk about niche, we talk about marketing, a lot of different things, where to set up your office, whether you should hire people or have a subcontract, things like that. We do these core topics because they are in fact what the descriptor is, their core. And people ask about them, and they're also the things that we cover in the workshops. And hey, you don't need to sign up for the workshop now because after all, you're here. And you can go back. I'm going to be referencing a document called, which is the business plan. So if you're on the YouTube thing, feel free to reach out to me. I think there's a way to contact me through YouTube, and I'll make sure that that document gets to you. And there's also a series of links that I've shared with everybody here that are all the previous YouTube sessions, the core topics that are going to be referenced throughout the session today. So, well, first of all, let me talk about why you might want to think about doing a business plan. When I was first starting consulting, and I didn't even have a name for my company yet before I was even Goshen Consulting, or at the time it was Goshen Education Consulting, I was going to go to the university where I worked. Actually, I had already tried to initiate this conversation about starting up a research institute. And I had all these ideas and all these plans, and I started working out finances and stuff like that. And they just didn't know what to do with me. Like it wasn't what they were, that's the research evaluation thing is not something that they did. And they just kind of stalled, and they were a little bit befuddled by me and all of my plans. It turns out that's not the last time that'll happen. So I kind of said, well, I'll just go figure it out on my own if you're not going to figure out how to work with me. And I will go make money. I'll do wonderful things. I'll figure out how to start this business thing. And so the very first thing I did was I went to the Small Business Development Center at my local university, SA, Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. And they had a workshop coming up called business planning. And I went to that session, and I'm going to repeat a bit of what I learned then, but I'll tell you why I thought it made sense. So most people go and do business planning for the purposes of getting a loan from a bank. Well, you may need to do that. I'm not very familiar with people getting loans to start an evaluation practice, but I didn't need to do it because I just kind of worked my magic as a side hustle until it became big enough for me to focus on as a main business. And but I didn't really know what I was doing, and I knew that this business planning session would help me just get my head around it. So in many ways, I needed to create a business plan to prove to myself, and well, as it turns out, to my partner, my family, that it made sense for me to quit a pretty well-paid job with benefits and all those things that come along with a pretty good job, and go after this dream of starting an independent consulting practice. So this business plan was something that I developed for myself. I've since talked about this, and it's been something that is a kind of a reference point for me, and it's something that I talk about in the workshops as well. It's a kind of a central point for people to reference throughout the workshops, or if we do a multi-day sessions, we go back to the business plan. In fact, if I have it set up for multiple, if we're doing it over like 6 sessions, the 6th session, everybody presents like a 20-minute version of their business plan. So just kind of a good way to do it. So let's see, I'm going to open up the other document. You should have gotten this in the chat. I'll put it in the chat one more time for anybody who's there. It's a template. When you open it up, it looks like this, just a typical Microsoft document. Let's see, where did it go? Here it is. I used Microsoft templates to create this, but then I kind of put in my own things, or something that can be edited. You can see this is the sort of thing, justification and plan of attack for, I mean, you would type in Goshen Consulting, and then you could put in your logo here, right? So this is just a template for you to use, but it's kind of a directed thing. Some people say, how do I get started? Well, I would say get started by having a retreat. Laura Keene went on a retreat. She drove into the desert, booked herself into a hotel room, and she wrote her business plan, which helped her think through these things. In my PowerPoint slideshow, I'm gonna stick to the PowerPoint, but you can see what I'm talking about is all kind of here. So you've got like a company, you can write your mission statement and vision statement, you can describe your niche, but all of this is for you to kind of effectively reflect and place in one location everything that you have. But I'm gonna stick to the PowerPoint, which should be kind of mirroring what you see in this document. But the document's meant for you to write in, create what you want. That helps you kind of focus your efforts towards how you're going to make this thing a reality or continue to take what you've started and make it better. All right. So it starts off with the company. And this is where you describe who you are. What are you trying to do? What kind of business are you? Are you just program evaluation, or are you going to do strategic planning? Do you have values? Do you have a mission? If you don't, why not? Maybe you should. How does this come into being? What are all these things? And this is going to reflect a little bit out of your niche or niche. I say niche. Who are you serving? I talked about the Ikigai, which is that intersection of talents and interests. What are you good at? What are you interested in doing? Where's there money for you to do what you're doing? And what is it that the world needs? And all of this is in a whole session that I did on niche. Who are your customers? You know, why are they interested in you as opposed to somebody else? What is it that makes you special to them? Is it your skill set? Hopefully. Is it because you're priced appropriately, because you're located near them, or you have this extreme interest in the thing that they do, and you have this background, you have an angle on what they can do? Also, who is your competition? For me, my competition, I remember writing this out very clearly. My competition were psychology professors who had no business doing program evaluation. And in some ways, that hasn't changed. We have a lot of those. There's great psychology professors, social science professors who understand research methods, who are doing program evaluation. And if you're one of them and you're here, then I'm sure you're one of the good ones. But there's a lot of the ones who shouldn't be doing it. And honestly, they get themselves in over their heads, and frankly, they come to me after they've started, or they get fired and then their clients come to me. What is it that makes you uniquely qualified? So that's what you're going to put in this section. Marketing and sales strategy. Well, this is the thing that makes everybody kind of a little anxious, right? But what is it that you're trying to do? What is that simple one-liner? What's your simple marketing message? How are you going to network, right? I said before we started recording that I have put out there that I don't spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. Maybe I should. I'm not saying that the jury's still out on this, but so far, this Goshen Consulting thing seems to operate pretty well without me spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. So I'm probably not going to change it right away. If I do it, it'll be because I'm more interested in connecting with people around the topic chats, not so much around what Goshen Consulting is trying to do. How are you connecting with people? And if anybody saw the e-group, that listserv that I put out yesterday, I answered these questions directly. What are you sharing? Where are you going? Who are those people? And some of those things that I put out in the bullet points were, you should be thinking about where your clients hang out. Are they on LinkedIn? So yeah, maybe you should be there. Mine as far as I know, aren't really hanging out. They probably are, but I think you're better going to those places where, you know, there's funding. Go to those funder conferences, the online ones, that is. And, you know, there's often like office hours where people can ask any question about what's going on. Well, go to those. Well, because you should know about it for developing an evaluation plan for anybody, but often you meet people there. Go meet the people in your community who are affiliated with the work that you do, like grant writers. Grant writers are always looking for evaluators. So these are things that you can think about with your marketing and sales strategy. Oh, but then when we're talking about branding, what is your style? Do you have, you can see my style involves these colors here that are in this slide. What is your logo? What is your company name? What is your URL for your website? Do you have a website? Why don't you have a website? Ask yourself these questions. All right, finances and fees. And I covered how you do this. There's a little workbook that you can put together. But what is your rate? Why is that your rate? How is that going to make sense? What are some of those startup expenses? And there's a worksheet that we put out for this too. Those startup expenses are, well, I mean, the big one for me is a computer, right? You want to get a decent computer that's going to do everything. What are your annual expenses? Around, you know, a lot of annual expenses are the software that we have to do the things that we do. Are you going to have a Google profile? How about accounting? How about lawyers? Do you need a line of credit? Do you have a line of credit, and do you need it? Do you have savings in case of something going wrong? How much do you have and why? The old standard for savings is you should have 3 months. That's oftentimes a lot of money. For any, depending, no matter where you are, whether you're a 1-person or a 15-person operation, it's a lot to save, but you may want to have that on hand just in case. When you go to operate, what is your operational structure? Are you going to stay as a sole proprietorship, a 1-person operation? Are you going to become an LLC or an S Corp? Why are you doing those things? Again, we just did a workshop or a session a couple weeks ago about what kind of organizational structure you could and should be. What are your key performance indicators? Meaning, how do you know you're successful? I think Kurt Stuck, who's here, said he knows he's successful if he has more money than he owes. Like he's in the black, right? But what are some of the other ones? What's your percent of time on billable work? Do you have profitability, as I was talking about? How many of your proposals that you put out there are won versus lost? Do you want a percentage? Should it be 50%? Should it be 75%, 25%? Complicated conversations, but those are the sorts of things you may want to think about. Do you have professional assistants? Have you worked with the Small Business Development Center? Do you want or need a business coach? Hey, the ICTIG, the Independent Consulting Topical Interest Group, can and should be some professional kind of informal assistance. Do you have other advisors like accountants and lawyers? This is a place to put that. You should be thinking about when things go wrong, or if you choose to leave the consulting practice, how does that work? If you have 4 or 5 contracts that are multiple years, but you've decided this is no longer for you, how do you transition out of that? I just was reviewing a contract that we're putting together with a university today. I have a clause in all of my contracts that allows me or the client to leave a contract with a 45-day notice. So that's one of the things I would do. Hypothetically, I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to just completely drop a contract, but I could do that. I could sell contracts. I could pass them off to colleagues. Is there a line that you cross that says, this is time for me to quit? This is where you would think about this and reflect on this. Again, what happens to your clients? Do you have liabilities? Do you have employees? What happens to those liabilities and employees? There's a whole bunch of things that I didn't even cover that you can put in here. Do you want to put these other additional sections in here, your logic model. Do you have templates for MOUs or contracts? And we've shared some of those over the years. An MOU, a memorandum of understanding. Oftentimes you use it in the early stages before you get to a point of contract. You have standard operating procedures. Anne Price likes to talk about her SOPs. It's basically a way to kind of, how do you go about doing your business? When such and such happens, what I should do. Do you have a plan for subcontracting? Becky loves subcontracts. She just talked a little bit ago about how she subcontracted very successfully with Jason. What is that plan for subcontracting? Maybe you want to do some subcontracting and you want to have employees. Maybe you want to only have employees, which is mostly my model. We only do a little bit of subcontracting. Or you just want to go and get the really great smart people who can just get the job done. You want subcontracts. What's that plan? Do you have a 5-year plan? Do you want to place your CV or your resume, or if you're involved with the National Science Foundation or any of the other foundations like that, a bio sketch that's specific. Perhaps you even have a link to where they are. So these are the sorts of things that you would put in any additional sections. And I'm sure there's about 100 additional sections that I didn't think of that you could put in there. So here's my quick reflections before we get into the chat function. The point of having a business plan is to reflect on why you're doing this thing, this business thing that you're doing, this independent thing. Gives you direction. This may only be a private and internal document. You don't need to share this with your lawyer or your banker. You're not probably going to get a loan because if you're like me, and a lot of you are, you're probably started this independent consulting practice as a side hustle, as something that you did when you were, maybe you're doing this now, as you're a full-time employee for somebody else, and now you're doing this on the side. So this gives you some guideposts, some direction. This is a consolidated document about all your thoughts about what you're doing. You put it all in one place. It's living. The whole idea is that it continues to grow and develop, and you can go back to it and edit it. And as you're pursuing work, and this happened to me a lot, particularly in the early days, somebody would say, tell me about your values or something like that. And I could go back, or who are you? And honestly, I could go back and pull paragraphs out of those early pieces and plug them directly into proposals and say, here at Goshen Education Consulting, which was the first name, Goshen Consulting is this, and I have these experiences, and we've worked with these types of clients. And that was directly from the business plan. Finally, it's a way to describe yourself to others. Before we started recording, I had people talk about their sessions that are coming up, and here they are. We won't have a session on July 4th. That's USA Independence Day. And it's, I think, July 1st. Is July 1st Canadian Independence Day? I think it is. So it's a good week to take off. A lot of us take that week off and go somewhere anyway. And then we'll come back and we'll do insurance. But I did talk about that next week is Becky Garrow's session on boundaries and client red flags. We're going to talk about how to brand and market yourself without constant social media. Jason's going to talk about R and Shiny dashboards, and then we'll do a late start on June 27th, where we're going to try and do it all live and in person with a whole bunch of folks, or perhaps some folks from the workshops that are going to be there in Washington, D.C. All right, I'm going to stop the recording and we will go into the other part where we get to talk about it.